Really not sure if it's a good idea to vlog. I think I'm feeling very sort of in a vulnerable state at the moment. It's been a couple of situations that have kind of caused it, or maybe a collection that's built it up. It's a bit of a strange place because it feels like I want to sort of be productive in some way, be creative, so whether record a video like this or a podcast episode. But then there's also so much overwhelm where to do this takes energy as well. So it's a bit of a catch-22, but I'm just doing this spontaneously. It's the morning time, and I'm going to try and do some really, really gentle yoga, just some movement in my body. I've noticed my legs being really, really weak, more weak than usual, and yeah, I'm just aware of that, my body being more stiff and rigid as well, which doesn't feel nice, and it feels sort of unnaturally sort of almost a bit painful when I try and stretch. So I'm not sure how like long COVID or chronic fatigue, if it affects things like that. I'm not really read up enough to know, but yeah, I'm just, there's a, I think, intrusive thought of me being a lot older and being very physically sort of more physical issues by not like taking care of things or doing some stretching at least. So yeah, I'm going to begin with that. And I may try and do some reading today as well. That's something I've been continuing to be reliable on, just as a focus in my day. One thing that's really tricky that I wanted to mention is about dating apps. Feels like a random segue into that, but that's where there's been some sort of difficult situations for me. I think maybe part of that is just social stuff, just like social interactions is challenging as it is. Even talking to friends or family, there's always like sort of a huge effort to be social, or to engage. Yeah, and I find with dating app stuff, it's so difficult. Generally speaking, it's difficult, but when I add in autism to it, it makes it a lot more challenging. So I'm finding it like not knowing where I stand with somebody, like almost like I've got a mind read a little bit, and what I feel like I need is just like complete transparency. So it feels like I'm losing a lot of those cues, like if I'm just like matched with somebody and then we're talking, I'm like, okay, like what do they want from this? Do they like want to take things slow? Do they okay with these messages, or do they want to, do I have to impress them with a message or be really engaging and interesting? And yeah, I've had a couple of recent matches where people have just sort of disappeared, or suddenly something's changed in their energy and just like giving really short responses on like, oh, what's going on? And then later they may message to say, oh yeah, you know, I just want to be friends, or this is not for me. But yeah, it feels like without that transparency, I feel so lost with communication, like taking a temperature of, you know, of how the communication's going, and I feel like, again, dating stuff is so fragile, and so, like, those social cues or understanding, reading between the lines is so much more important, and there's so much more less room for error. Like, you say one wrong thing, or a message is not quite to someone's liking, and immediately you just don't hear from them. And I'm sure those without autism sort of dealing with that as well. But yeah, it kind of, there's a couple of times when that happened where I was messaging somebody, and then there'd just be a huge gap where they would stop engaging, or and then I would sort of message, and again I'll be going through the mental maths of, oh, okay, should I give them space? When should I message? How long is enough space? And everything will just be analysed, and almost like I'm trying to learn, okay, what do non-autistics do? Like, what's the... it's tough as well, because that's maybe a form of masking in some ways, versus being maybe a bit more blunt and transparent. I don't know if that's the way to go. Yeah, so I was left really overwhelmed when I was, like, people, and this is probably a trend for a while, where people just sort of disappear on these apps. And even talking about it now, I can feel the overwhelm of my mind swirling, and being able to convey in words what I'm feeling. And obviously it's a tense, sensitive subject for me. There's lots of, like, trauma around relationships and intimacy and things in that whole department. And it's strange, because after that I thought, not that I've given up on dating apps completely, or the idea of a relationship, but it just feels sort of inconceivable at this point. So I kind of had it in my mind to sort of step away and just live life now, not even have the thought of, this is never going to happen, or how is that going to be possible with being autistic, like, to meet somebody. But and then someone who I sort of matched with a while back, because I usually, this is turning into like a dating app video now, but I normally prefer to speak to one person at a time, which is almost impossible on these things, because things kind of move, and matches and stuff. And I've been on the other end so many times where someone said, oh, I've actually been speaking to somebody else, and I'm going to see how things go with them. And I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah. So I messaged this person after, like, a while, once they matched with me, and yeah, I'm just feeling really vulnerable about it, because I've been sort of on the end of sort of negative experiences. So I'm questioning everything now, like, oh, like, how should I proceed with messaging, and what should I say? And, like, I feel more lost than ever. And maybe that's completely natural, being autistic and dealing with those symptoms. And yeah, like, not to be hard on myself about that, but it's overwhelming of how to deal with it. Like, part of me wants to be really honest with them and say, hey, can we be, like, super transparent? And maybe say, like, maybe I won't say it in this way, but almost say, like, I don't really know what to say in these messages. Like, do you want to kind of have a chat on here, or do you want to, like, just meet in person and talk? Because that's what I prefer, maybe. But yeah, maybe that kind of, I had that thought about being just super transparent, even about my autism, which I've written on my profile to say, like, oh, I've been diagnosed as an adult, and yeah, I feel like I just need to be sort of transparent and honest, because trying to read and play this game, but tread this real thin razor wire of what's socially okay or socially normal, or in that bandwidth of that. Um, it feels like I guess I'm seeking sort of safety and understanding from somebody, to not suddenly bail and think, oh, that was a weird message, or this is not really going anywhere. And I need someone almost to dig deeper, to kind of feel like, to not judge so quickly, which maybe in this sort of circles of dating stuff and online, the way people behave online is a big deal as well, where people do things they wouldn't normally do face to face. They wouldn't just sort of, in the middle of a conversation, just turn around and walk away, which is what effectively happens in a digital sense. So that's something I wanted to talk about for a while. That's just been there for a few weeks, live one. So maybe I'll just try and be transparent and honest. And then there's the question of, I don't want to be too honest and just give them this overwhelming message that's too much. But I know that's something that autistics do though as well. So yeah, it's really, maybe I'm getting to the point of how to be myself perhaps with this stuff, and to not, and how much to filter, how much to mask, and what is that like balance? I don't really know. It's also confusing for me. Maybe go into it in another video perhaps, to think about it out loud. But maybe it's good I shared that. I don't know how I feel about sharing that. I feel really vulnerable sharing about dating and relationship stuff. I don't know if it's safe for me, feels safe for me to do so, even though I'll probably upload this, because with the brain fog, I'm not being able to really process what I've just said, in a sense, the impact of it. So maybe I'll upload this and just see, then I can always like take it down if I feel unsafe about it. But just going back to today, it's going to be like almost a rest day inside. I went into the city yesterday. I met up with a friend and went to the library. So I won't be sort of going out today. I don't think, no. Maybe it's good just to have that balance of rest. So I plan to do some reading this morning. I find when I'm in a book, it's like a nice goal to try and finish it. Like each book's a struggle to finish. It's a lot of work and sort of concentration, and so it gives me a bit of focus, I guess, as well, to do that. So I'm gonna read. I may try and write some more poetry without forcing it. I'd have the idea of maybe having shorter format of writing. So instead of trying to work on a novel I'm writing, but maybe do like a flash fiction or really short story. I know there's some short story competitions as well, where it's just like 1,000 words, and maybe that's more manageable, even though it's not as satisfying as a long form piece of work. And poetry as well. I feel like maybe that's sort of accessible to do, but in a really non-forced way, because sort of creative energy can go into poetry and a spark of inspiration and stuff, so it can be quite heavy duty as well. So maybe I can just keep that in mind without having any expectations, and just be open to it and see if anything comes up poetry-wise. Because I did write a poem yesterday, and it was something that was kind of formed, lines or the essence of the poem formed over the last couple of days, and so I knew what needed to be written, maybe not the words, but the expression of what I wanted to say. It was a really raw, emotive type of poem versus something I'm just creating from scratch and trying to craft, and it was something that was just kind of an outpouring. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna get going.